Hey, yo, what's up, world? What's poppin'? It's your guy, DJ Foreign, back with another episode of the Foreign Frequency. I know y'all miss me. I miss y'all too. Been busy, man. Been out here traveling quite a bit, actually. Sorry for the past few weeks, man. I haven't been on this joint because, for all of y'all who know, my youngest went out to school out in Florida, so been trying to help him out, kind of get settled in out there, make sure I've been in Florida a lot. I'm not going to hold you. I've been flying to Florida damn near every other week. So I just haven't really had the time to sit down and do the pod. I got to figure out a way how I could do the pod on the road. But we're going to figure that out later. But yeah, what's popping, man? Welcome to another Foreign Frequency. Make sure y'all, of course, stall off on that like button. Get the subs going. If you haven't subscribed yet, do that right now and get the hype going. I'm here to talk about how somebody just fumbled $8,000 a month over a trip to Miami. If y'all don't know what I'm talking about, this is a wild story, man. Stefon Diggs. If you're a football fan, then you know him from the New England Patriots. If you don't know him, you probably know him because of Cardi B. Yeah, that's Cardi B's baby father. Yeah, baby daddy and all that. But yes, Stefon Diggs, man, just found not guilty after a 2-day trial that happened in regards to him assaulting his chef, his private chef. Now, again, we're going to talk a lot about this case. This might be triggering for some of y'all, so I just want to put that disclaimer out there. But god damn, how do you fumble $8,000 a month just to cook 3 meals a day? In essence, that's what it was. Yes, Stefon Diggs was accused last year in December of assault, strangulation, actually, of his private chef. The court trial happened a couple of days ago. And it went by like this. 2 days, over and done with. Case open, case closed. Is that what Jay-Z say? Case open, case closed. Pardon me. Grand opening, grand closing. That's what Jay-Z says, right? And this was a wild situation to watch. Now, what I love about these trials nowadays is that they do these joints live on YouTube, so you get to watch them like in its entirety, raw, authentic. And that's what I did. I watched this trial because, again, Stefon Diggs was in the headlines prior to this accusation. He was in the headlines for a lot. Remember, the New England Patriots not only made it to the Super Bowl, where we lost, all good. We're going to get him next year. He was in a high-profile relationship with Cardi B, and that was really messy because, she was, I believe, pregnant at the time if she hadn't just given birth. And at the same time, he also had another woman pregnant at the time. There was a bunch of people coming out saying that Stefon was in the news more for what he was doing off the field than what he was doing on the field. And I'll be honest with y'all, I felt like that was the reason why his chef kind of like, jumped out the window and made these accusations. Now, listen, making assault accusations, putting your hands on a woman, hold on, putting your hands on anybody should never be the norm, right? But we can't just be running around here accusing people of things that we know they didn't do. Now, if you don't know the backstory, again, it's December of 2012. I believe the date was either December 2nd or the 5th. Actually, I think it was the 5th. And 14 days after the assault, his private chef, I got to get her name right, too. Hold on, let me see here. His private chef, Mila Adams. Miss Adams went ahead and accused my boy. Well, he's not my boy, but he went ahead and accused Stefon Diggs of assault, claiming that, they had an argument and that he had choked her. Now, I don't know Mila Adams, pardon me. I don't know Mila Adams' height, size, or anything, but from what I saw on Court TV and even by her own testimony, she's a shorter woman. And, of course, Stefon Diggs, again, I don't know how tall he is, but he's an athlete. He's an elite athlete, right? This guy's in the gym and all of that. He's an NFL football player. So, just off rip, the contrast when you make that kind of accusation just makes the whole, it just make it looks bad. And now, mind you, like I said, Diggs was also going through a lot of things in the news outside of the field, right? He had the baby mama drama. He had Cardi B as his girlfriend, and they were kind of on shaky grounds because, again, she was pregnant. There was another woman, I believe, somewhere in New York or something, claiming that they were about to have a baby, and it was only, I think, like just a couple of months apart. So it was messy. And to me, I felt like maybe his chef, who had been with him for quite a while, they had been friends from quite a while, according to her testimony. Maybe thought like, because the court of public opinion had kind of put this guy in a certain place, that she might have been able to win this case. I'll be honest with you. I really think that's what it was. I think she got gassed by, all the news and blogs and everything going on about him, that she felt like, oh, nah, I can put this kind of accusation on him and people are going to believe me and I'm going to win. And I'll be honest, a lot of people probably did think about, hey, yo, damn, Stefon again? Bro, like, I might have been one of those people who's like, damn, bro, like, you just can't stay out the headlines. You a messy dude. Like, you choking out your chef? But yes, this this case ended up going to trial and only lasted 2 days. Now, listen, it wasn't a lot of witnesses. She, I think, Miss Adams was the only one who testified for 2 days. Everybody else was kind of in and out of there. And we had, not too many people. We had, the key witnesses, of course, was her, Miss Adams, who testified on her behalf. By the way, backed up by the DA. And for anybody who doesn't know, the Massachusetts DA, especially the DA that prosecuted this case, has been in the shambles for the last few cases that they've been bringing up. One of them you might have heard about, Karen Reed case. Pardon me. That was a case that they fumbled badly and made them look horrible. And there's been a bunch of other cases where they the DA's office just hasn't been looking good. And they brought a case which, in my opinion, I'll be honest with you, should have never seen a courtroom. We should have never wasted taxpayer dollars. We should have never been here. You know what I mean? And again, if you wasn't following the case, the Miss Adams accused Stefon of choking her out. Now, initially when she made this police report, she said that it was over money, right? In the courtroom, though, it ended up being a lot deeper than that. Or actually, it had almost nothing to do with bread. She, according to her testimony, had an argument with Stefon Diggs, I believe on December 15th or the 12th or something like that. Pardon me, on the 5th or the 2nd, something like that. Argument so bad that the Stefon came into her room, pushed her onto the bed, and then ended up choking her, like putting his forearm around her neck and everything. Scary, right? Doesn't sound good for the boy. Again, especially in public opinion, in the public court of law, well, not really a court of law, but in the public court's eyes, this guy's just one after another after another. So she says that this man choked her out. Well, not out, but choked her. And because of that, that is why she filed a police report in Dedham, Mass, right? Couple of red flags that went up was, one of them was that it took her 14 days for her to make this accusation. It took her 14 days to come forward. And again, sometimes it be like that. Sometimes, you're going through traumatized, you're traumatized, your brain is thinking about, you finally come to a place where you're kind of like, damn, like this really happened to me. So the 14 days wasn't a red flag maybe at the time, if that's all the info I knew, but just knowing everything else, it kind of goes along to just a bunch of red flags out here. So 14 days after the assault, December 16th, she goes and files a police report. In the police report, she talks to an officer. That officer also came to the stand. We're going to talk about that in a few. And I believe the officer emailed her a form where she had to go fill out what happened to her, which she filled out and sent back. The police officers tried to contact Stefon. Not really sure if they got a hold of him, but they tried to contact him a couple of times. And after that, this case was presented to the DA. The DA saw the case and said, yep, this is a prosecutable offense. This is a case that we need to bring to court. And sure enough, that's what they did. So in March of 2026, they selected 6 jurors. Now, here's another thing that you got to pay attention to. 6 jurors, 1 man, the rest all women. In an assault case, and we just having a conversation here, right? In an assault case where a man is assaulting a woman, I would feel like the women are gonna side with their own. They're gonna side with the woman, especially if the story comes out and says, "Yo, here's this big, rich NFL dude choking out a young, vulnerable lady for no reason other than whatever the case may be." I would think that, that's a risky move having them as jurors, because those women are gonna, as the defense, those women are gonna side with the woman. You know what I mean? Because again, there's so many women out here who get assaulted and their voices are never heard. Or maybe they're never believed. Sometimes because of cases like this, I'll be honest with y'all, right? It's women like this who make real victims either scared to come forward or even not get the justice that they deserve. Because again, this case was a fumble from the beginning. Mila Adams accuses this man of doing what he does. The police, Dedham police, especially that one officer, does his small investigation. I'm going to put that in quotes. And they bring this case to trial. Now, on the stand, she explains her story. She says, hey, listen, it was a money situation. I needed my back pay. I was owed money for all my services. By the way, she was getting paid $2,000 a week to chef for this man. That's $2,000 to cook 3 meals a day, maybe some snacks for the season. Where do I get that job at? Because I need that. She was getting $2,000. And if you do the math, that's $8,000 a month. You know what I mean? How long does the NFL season run for? However many, 13 weeks, 18 weeks? I'm not a big NFL fan like that, but it's a long time. You get some bread. I think I did the math before as I was watching the trial, and it ended up being like, in just the season alone, she was going to make like $35,000 to almost $40,000, right? Once she gets on trial and she says her testimony, of course, the DA, and you got to know, if you're not familiar with how court works, a lot of times with your client, me as a lawyer, I'm going to rehearse. If my client is going to take the stand, we're going to practice. We're going to rehearse. We're going to prepare your testimony is what they call it. Where we talk about potentially, the questions, not potentially, but the questions I'm going to ask you, off rip. These are the questions I'm going to ask you. This is the path we're going to go down. This is how we're going to address this. This is how we're going to build this case up while you're on the stand. You also have to prepare them for what might happen with the defense or the cross-examination. That's now the other side asking you questions, and they might throw questions at you like this, like that. They might try to trip you up here. Like, I know a couple of lawyer friends, and they say they literally practice a cross-examination. Number one, to get you to feel, because people get emotional up there. If you've never been in lawyers' experience, they do this year in, year out. That's what they get paid for. Us as regular civilians, we go to a courtroom, you might freeze, you might panic, you might react a certain kind of way. So I even got some lawyer friends who were like, yo, it could get to a point where you literally practice a cross-examination so you can feel how tense it feels. You can kind of feel and get familiar with this feeling. So when you do get on that stand, you're not a deer in headlights. You're quick with it. You know how to answer these questions. Miss Adams gets on the stand, pardon me. And she's being cross-examined by Stefon Diggs' lawyers. Mind you, a female lawyer. Again, being in the court, I'm not no lawyer, but I watch a lot of this. I read a lot about law. I watch a lot about law. I listen to other lawyers who break down a lot of these cases, and you pick up on a couple of things. And, I think that was very strategic that they used a female lawyer to kind of cross-examine Miss Adams, because, again, optically, you got to remember, we have 6 jurors sitting there trying to determine whether what you're going to say about this lady, saying that she has whatever she's accusing this man of is not what it is. You got to paint a picture in that way and make it sure that their perception, how they leave after your cross-examination or after your witnesses or after whatever, on both sides, by the way, is believable. And I love that they chose to use a woman because, again, the optics. Why do I want a man, my male lawyer, arguing with a female chef? That just, for some people, it just looks like, why is a man arguing with a woman? There's some people who think that way. And you don't know if these jurors, one of these 6 jurors might feel like, damn, you're being kind of harsh on this lady. You know what I mean? Because, boy, did Stefon Diggs' lawyer go in on Shorty. Like, she did not let this woman breathe. And quickly, quickly Miss Adams started to just crumble on that stage. For being a professional chef, she fried herself on that stage. She lost this case because she really came in there with the narrative and thought she could outsmart the courts and the jurors. She really came in there with a narrative saying that I'm gonna paint this dude as just I'm gonna assassinate his character. The way she did that is that she was asked mad questions, right? She would be asked questions like, isn't it true that such and such and such happened? And she would go off on a tangent. She would try to, the way the court works is that you ask the question and you answer the question that you asked, you know? And the judge, these clips, the judge literally had to tell Miss Adams at one point, they had to take the jurors out of the courtroom, and she literally addressed Miss Adams and said, listen, you got to understand that when you're asked the question, answer the question asked, and that's it. This is not the time for you to interject your own feelings or your opinions or anything like that. That's not how court works. You ask the question, you answer the question, we move on to the next. You know what I mean? And she couldn't grasp that, bro. This was day 2 that she got this warning. All through trial 1 during her cross-examination, not only did Stefon's lawyer have to be like, judge, can you tell her to just answer the questions and leave it at that? And the judge herself had to tell her a couple of times. So on day 2, judge had enough. Exit the jurors. I don't want them to hear this. And told her, yo, listen, if you don't just answer the questions moving forward without putting your own opinion in it, I could eliminate your whole testimony. And for this case, where she's the star witness and there wasn't that many witnesses or people to be brought up on that in that jury box or on that podium for you to testify, if they eliminate her testimony, the case is done. It's a wrap. We're not even moving forward because now you're telling the juror to disregard everything that they heard from the victim. So for the victim to be told by the judge, yo, you need to chill, relax, stop doing too much. Otherwise, I'm going to throw out all your testimony. And if I do that, you're losing this case. That's crazy. From a jurist perspective, that's nuts that I'm sitting here watching a judge tell the victim, the lady who's I'm supposed to be feel bad for, the lady who I'm supposed to believe this situation happened and being combative in court with a lawyer, Stefon's lawyer, and then being reprimanded by the judge every other 5, 10, 15 minutes. It was wild to watch. The last time I saw something like this was Johnny Depp's trial. I forgot, Amber Heard. Y'all remember that? I don't know, you haven't watched that. Amber Heard did the exact same thing in the Johnny Depp case where she accused Johnny Depp of abuse and assault. And on that stage, she tried everything and anything. Like, again, they would ask Miss Adams a simple question like, yo, this was wild. Adams has a lawsuit. She went and found a lawyer, and they filed a $5 million, I think it was a $5.5 million lawsuit against Stefon to get money for workers' comp, she claims, right? Tell me why. Simple yes or no question. From Stefon's lawyer said, hey, you and your lawyer have filed a $5.5 million lawsuit against Stefon, right? Yo, shorty would not answer. She said, I don't know how to answer that question without giving more information. The lawyer goes, so you're telling me that you can't tell me that you don't know that somebody's representing you on your behalf, filing a $5.5 million case against Stefon? I don't know how to answer that question. Yo, that's what it was 100% of the time. Pardon me, 50% of the time. The other 50 was her trying to interject, again, little things. They asked her a question about, you were getting kicked out of the house, right? You realize that, oh, he just wanted me out of the house so, he could have his way with all the women that he always has in and out of there. Yo, bro, she tried to air this boy out. She tried to make him look like, like he just was the worst man in the world. But here's the problem with that. You can't do that in court. In public, you could do that all day. You could go on Instagram, TikTok, and do that. And again, I think Shorty's mind was, this guy's image publicly is so bad. In the court of public opinion, his image is so bad that I could go into a court of law and win this joint. She fucked around and found out. Because that lawyer, Stefon's lawyer, dug holes all over her story. And it ended up being that she changed her tune from what her initial accusation was money, to the real reason, get this, was because she was not invited to Miami for Art Basel during his birthday weekend where Cardi B would be there. She wanted to go hang out with him. And because he never said nothing and she found out, or low-key she kind of knew, and then he kind of confirmed it by just, asking her some random question, that's when the fight started. And they had a whole argument about it. I think at one point Stefon had, I don't know if it was after that or something like that, but Stefon also felt like she had put some stories out to the blogs and leaked some information out to the blogs, which she claimed she never did. But in essence, what she was talking about, that she was owed mad bread, I think $19,000 or something around that figure, ended up being that she was not even owed that. His accountant came on the stand and said that we actually overpaid Shorty. Bro. Again, y'all gotta stay with me. $2,000 a month to cook for this man, 3 meals a day. We're not even talking the perks, bro, because his chief of staff came on the stand. She makes about $100,000 a year. Which, if I think if you do the math, if the chef worked year round for him, she would make about the same amount of money. Here are the benefits. They all stayed, well, not all of them, but the chef for sure stayed in the mansion that he had out in Dedham or wherever it was. It had to be Dedham because that's where the assault happened. My man was pushing a Porsche and a Maybach. I don't know what other cars he had out here, but that Porsche was for anybody that worked in the house to use at your discretion, because the chief of staff was rolling around in the Porsche. This ain't no little Porsche Cayenne or some Macan or something. This is a Porsche, I believe it was a 911. Like, ill car. You feel? I'm a car guy, so I'm like, oh damn, what? Give me that job. I get to roll around when I'm not cooking. I get to roll around in a Porsche and just do whatever I want and stay in the mansion rent free, and all the other perks that you get with that too. Because remember, once he got with Cardi B, I'm not gonna hold you. If you're an NFL fan, you probably knew about Stefon, but I feel like his household name increased once he became attached to Cardi B. Because people like me who are not really interested in the NFL like that were fly-by fans, or maybe we're not fans at all. There's some people who are not fans at all. You didn't know who Stefon Diggs was until they got together with Cardi B, right? So now you a celebrity chef, because he's not just a celebrity as in football. He's a celebrity as in, news. She's a celebrity chef. You get to stay in the crib. You get to drive luxury cars. You get to go to trips. Maybe not all of them, but you get to go to some trips, hang out with bro. Cardi B is running around in your crib. You get to be friends with her. Like, these perks that come with this thing. And all you got to do is just cook 3 meals a day and get your bread and be cool. Now, she revealed, and this is where Stefon's messy, she revealed that her and Stefon had a sexual relationship. I'm not sure if, the way I took it, I wasn't sure that they still continue to have a sexual relationship, which they probably did. But I'm not sure if they continue to have a sexual relationship while she was working there. But she had said prior to that, they had a friendship and a sexual relationship. And that's low-key how she even got the job, because he was just like, yo, I'm going to hire you. Come stay with me. He probably was just paying for the draws. Let's just keep it a buck. You know what I mean? Because Stefon be fucking. Let's be honest. And there's nothing wrong with that. You might look at him as a sleazeball or whatever you want to say, but, he be slanging. He's out here just slanging it. You know what I mean? And that's his prerogative. Just because he did that doesn't make him guilty of assault. We get back to that later. But she did say that they had a sexual relationship, and, that is that. Cool. Now, what ended up happening is that Stefon's team came with receipts. And this is where I blame the DA for not taking this thing to court. Because there's a thing in the court system. Again, I'm not a lawyer, but I watch a lot. I'm going to put y'all onto game in case you don't know. In court, whenever you go to court or anything like that, right? If you're going against somebody or you have to defend yourself, there's a thing called discovery. What discovery is that my side of the table, my lawyers, got to show your side of the table, or who we defending ourselves against, or whoever we trying to get into jail, if it's the DA. We have to basically show our hand, playing cards, to show you this is what we're building our case on. This is the evidence that we got. You don't got to give them full details, but you do have to present what evidence you plan on bringing to the stand. That's, again, your witness list, videos if you have them, text messages if you have them, anything that has to do with this case that you plan on presenting in court as evidence to go with your case. You have to present it. That's called the discovery. So in essence, the DA office knew exactly what routes Stefon Diggs' lawyers were planning to take to defend this man. And that included text messages that she deleted, videos, that's the wild part that we're going to talk about, and witnesses who were with Miss Adams literally the day after the assault. So in the statement that Dedham police gave Miss Adams, she wrote down herself. This is not somebody who, nobody wrote down to her. They literally emailed her a form, told her, fill this out, send it back to us. She, by her own will, wrote down in that statement that this guy strangled her so bad that she had bruises and redness on her neck. Watch how surgical Stefon Diggs' lawyers are. So they ended up, because what really happened in the case, and this is how they presented it, is that after this argument that they had about Art Basel, again, December 2nd, December 5th, around there, pardon me, Stefon basically told Miss Adams she got to go. He said, hey, it had to come to this, but I'm good. I no longer need you for the season. Miss Adams' defense was that after that, I told him, all right, cool, I'm leaving. She was even asked, did you know you were being fired? She said, nah, I wasn't being fired. I was leaving. But I told him there was back pay that I was owed, and because you cutting me out midway through the season, you got to pay me for the rest of the season, right? But the story really was that, again, she couldn't go to Art Basel. She was not invited, even though her and Cardi B had already picked out outfits and everything to go hang out together. And Stefon cut that short and was like, nah, you can't come. And that's why she got upset. So when she makes this accusation, she fills out in the form, this guy choked me out. I had redness and bruises on my neck. Initially, what the lawyers from Stefon's side said, now bruises, we've all had bruises, right? And she's a light-skinned chick. So, I'm a little darker. Bruises might be a little harder to see on me. But she's a light-skinned chick. And she was asked, with these bruises, did you ever get basically black and blues? And she said, nah, just some redness on my neck and my chest. And she's like, and you never took pictures of that? She was like, nah. And she was like, oh, you got an iPhone, right? Like, you got a nice phone? Like, you didn't think to take pictures of that? She was like, nah. Her excuse was, hey, I was kind of traumatized by the situation. My mind was everywhere, which, again, I could, in her defense, I can imagine that being a thing. Because sometimes when something happens to you dramatic, your brain doesn't automatically go to collect evidence. Nah, you it might take you a little while to kind of snap out of it and start realizing what are the things that you need to do. But again, here's how diabolical the lawyers for Stefon were. They ended up, I guess she ended up calling Stefon Diggs' hairdresser, who's a Trini girl from Brooklyn, who came and picked her up the very next day, if not just hours after the alleged assault happened. Yo, Shorty had it. The hairdresser had a dash cam in the car. And in that dash cam, they were able to show, because it was a dash cam that showed, and I think what happened was the hairdresser came and picked her up, or maybe was there already, and they ended up driving to Brooklyn to the hairdresser's apartment, right? But they have dash cam video footage of Miss Adams sitting in the passenger seat, because that thing records while the car is on, in the nighttime and in the daytime. And they took a picture of her neck and zoomed in. Again, this is just hours after the assault. No redness, no bruising. The next day, she was in the apartment for the hairdresser in Brooklyn dancing. Yo, this chick was dancing, smiling, dancing, all of that. All smile. This is after the assault just happened. Clear as day, again, zooming into the neck. No redness, no bruising. there was text messages that were deleted where she tried to spin the narrative that certain responses that she sent to Stefon had to do with money, but they were able to prove that, nah, this didn't have to prove with money. This was him firing you. And like she tried to take the text messages out of context. Again, assassination of his character. And they were able to prove that she had deleted text messages in between her messages to make it look like she was talking about one thing, the money, when it really was about Miami, right? In one of those text messages, she even says, yo, I'm sorry about the argument and all of that. I just want to make sure that you're good. I want to make sure I take care of you and all of this, that it's my bad, I'm sorry, basically, let's just continue with our agreement or whatever. I'm good. That won't ever happen again. But I think at that point, Stefon had said, nah, I'm good. You could leave. And that's when she ended up, the day she got fired, which was, again, days after the assault, the next day is when she went to the police station to put in this police report. So they're able to prove that, these text messages and how, because, and again, what she did, which I'm sorry, it's corny, is she really was combative in that court trial. She was not trying to answer no questions that she knew where Stefon Diggs' lawyer was going. She knew where the path that she was getting led down. But because she didn't want to admit it, there was a time when she was asked, yo, isn't it true? Isn't it true? The question I said earlier, isn't it true that you have someone representing you that has filed a lawsuit against Stefon on your behalf for $5.5 million? Yo, this lady went silent like this. And then quickly, well, he offered me $100,000 to try to retract my statement. She tried to get that because she knew she couldn't do that. She tried to get that out so fast. And Stefon Lawyers was like, what? No, stop. What are you talking about? She accused this man of a whole nother illegal witness tampering. That's witness tampering. That's intimidation. She tried to accuse him of a whole nother a crime on the stand. They had to go to sidebar. Sidebar is where the lawyers, on both sides, had to go to the judge. In any other case, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I listen to a lot, and I try to teach myself a couple of things. In any other, you can't do that in court. In any other trial, the defense goes to the judge and says, I want a mistrial with prejudice. With prejudice means that I want this case thrown out and y'all can never try my client again. Yo, you know how ill these people knew that their case was so solid? And that's an easy layup. That's an out. Because Shorty went and lost her mind and started accusing him of trying to pay her hush money. After the court, they were asked, yo, did you ever consider doing a mistrial? And these lawyers were like, nah, we didn't even ask for one. That's how gangster they are. We didn't even ask for one because they knew there was nothing here. They were like, nah, we didn't even ask for one. We just said we'll just continue. Just tell her to not do that again. Yeah. And every turn, anytime she was being talked to by this lawyer, that's all she did. That's all she did. And as much as she thought she might have been smart doing it that way, she really, again, as a chef, she really was cooking herself. She cooked herself on that stand. She made herself look crazy, not only to the public. She made herself look crazy to the court. She made herself look crazy to the jurors, the people who mattered the most, the people who are going to come back with a decision. All because she couldn't go to Miami, bro. You fumbled $8,000 a month, all because you couldn't go to Miami and hang out with Cardi B and all of them and celebrate his birthday at Art Basel. Now, Stefon is not, he might not be guilty of this, which, by the way, deliberation took an hour and a half. Within an hour and a half, the 5 women and the 1 man came back and said, nah, this is BS. Not guilty. With all the officer who took the statement was the only person who did investigating. And all his investigation was take her statement, call Stefon, try to get a hold of Stefon a couple of times, and then said, yeah, let's take it. Let me give it to the DA. The DA looked at this and said, yeah, we could take this to court. Absolutely a waste of time. Okay, cool. Even if the DA at that time was like, yo, this is a high profile case, because remember, they've had a bunch of other cases. Karen Reed, go look that up. Maybe one day I'll talk about it because I was invested in that case too. But Karen Reed was a woman who was dating a Boston police officer who ended up dying. I don't even want to get into it too much, but it ended up being that there was a whole, it seemed, allegedly, in my opinion, it seemed like there was a whole cover-up that happened from the DA, the police department. It was a shit show, right? And maybe they looked at this case and said, yo, this might be one that we can win to make us start looking good in the public eye. Because I'm telling you, this DA's office does not look good in any way. Because the Karen Reed story went national. A bunch of other, and ever since then, there's been a magnifying glass on the DA, on the Massachusetts state police. And again, this officer, all he did was get her statement, tried to contact Stefon, gave this case to the DA for them to decide whether they wanted to prosecute, and they decided to do so. Cool. So even if at that point you was like, yo, this is Stefon Diggs. This is a big fish. Let's go get him. Once you got discovery and you found out that, hey, yo, they plan on showing the neck hours after the assault with no bruising, after her statement said that she had bruising and redness, they plan on showing deleted messages. They plan on showing how these messages kind of showed that she was upset about going to, and they still took it. They still brought it to trial. That's our tax dollars. Well, I'm in New Hampshire, so I ain't paying those. But those are still taxpayer dollars that you're wasting. Bringing bringing a case to court that does not matter, bro. Which is wild to me. Wild to me. And you know what else is wild to me, Miss Adams? Is that you accuse this man of assault. Because of that, mind you, this was when he was in the Super Bowl. Because of that, I truly believe this, in my opinion. Because of that, he got cut from the Pats. The Patriots cut him. They released him. After the seed, they lost the Super Bowl, they released him. He has not been signed since. And I, again, believe that's because of this thing that was hanging over his head. Because what team wants to sign a man that abuses women or anybody at that point, right? So you don't know what kind of financial, what kind of, again, being tied to Cardi B, as messy as it is, some companies are going to look at that and say, yo, let's figure out a way how to make some bread with young man. Because, he's out here clicking. You feel me? But you don't know how many endorsement deals he lost. You don't know what kind of strain that put on his life financially, personally. And it's so easy to accuse a man of assaulting a woman. And a lot of times, people believe it. Let's keep it 100. People will believe something like that, right? But luckily, this juror saw right through it. Luckily, Miss Adams fried herself on that stand by just being combative, evasive, and just nasty at the cross-examination, that she exposed herself for really what it was, just a bitter, angry woman. But I truly believe, like, if somebody brings this kind of cases to if you put this, especially assault, bro, if you put that kind of case on somebody, you should, and it's found to be false, you should face the exact same consequences that person would have faced if they had been found guilty. If the guilty verdict would have landed him 5 years, you need to be prosecuted for the same. So we can stop this bullshit and this nonsense of people just opening their mouths and saying whatever they want because they got hurt, because they ain't getting some dick, or they not going to Miami, or they don't like how this happened, or they're getting broken up with, or whatever the case may be, right? The people who make false accusations of this level need to be immediately prosecuted. And they need to face the exact same time that the person that they were accusing and put all through. This is lawyer money. His lawyers ain't cheap. That's if not hundreds of thousands of dollars down the drain that you can never get back. You know what I mean? That's, again, as if I'm looking at Stefon, is your career over? You know what I'm saying? And you're nervous because even though this might have not happened, it could. I would be sitting. Listen, me personally, I'd be sitting there being like, "Damn, there's 5 women. They're gonna believe her." But luckily, these people they didn't even need to be smart. Stevie Wonder could see that this chick was lying just because of the way she acted. Just she really wanted to just. She created a spectacle on that stand, and she just wanted to make this guy look like horrible. And again, if you're gonna do something like this, and you feel that, and you can really like stoop to that level where you could accuse somebody of this kind of assault and to the point where you stand on it and you take it to trial and you let a DA's office take it to trial and try to defend you and try to lock a man up just because you didn't like something that he did or whatever the case may be, or y'all breaking, come on, bruh. Same exact, I feel like they should face the exact same thing. I feel like she should go to jail. Anybody who doesn't, because again, it makes it hard for other women or other people who go through abuse and assault to come forward, especially if it's a powerful man, right? Because you're going to be like, damn, a couple of lawyers are going to get me out of here. They're going to, they might not believe me. They might not, you know what I mean? You're just making it harder for other people because, so again, Miss Adams, shame on you. Not only wasting people's time, but just, acting like, come on, bruh. You fumble, bro. $8,000 a month, $100,000 a year if you're stuck around. And he was going to use you all year round. You had the illest perks. You probably getting dick down too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you was good. Not everybody's making $2,000 a week. People jump at the chance to do that. And you, just because your ego and you were upset about something, and because you crossed that line, you had to see it through, because you already went to the police. Different story if you probably threatened him and said, hey, I'm going to go to the cops. But you literally did that. So now you had to follow through. Otherwise, you knew how that was going to look for you. And that's whack, bro. I hope, karma is real. So, your karma's on the way. Because guess what? Now, she ain't never gonna be a chef no more, right? Who's going to hire? I wouldn't. If that was your bread, you're going to have to go get you a 9-to-5, bro. And it's hard to get a job out here. That's my son. He knows. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to get a job out here. So now you guys got to go be a regular person. You got to go back to driving whatever car you was driving. If you had a whip, you have to go back to just a regular life. Why? Because you couldn't go to Art Basel in Miami. Sometimes we got to, there's a saying in Africa, don't look past your nose. Like some people can't see past their nose. They only see right to their nose. They don't see anything ahead of that. And we got to be smart out here. So to Stefon Diggs, bro, stop mixing business and pleasure, please. Like, not all, what is good, what. You know what I'm saying? And to anybody like Miss Adams, it's not worth it, bro. It's not worth it. Some people win these kind of cases and ruin people's lives forever. You know what I mean? Check your emotions. And if it's a situation you just don't want to be in, walk away. That's it. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, it was dope tapping back in with y'all, man. We're going to keep this going on a regular. As always, you know what to do. Tap in with me at DJ, the number 4EIGN. That's at DJ Foreign. Yeah, Foreign Frequency. I'm back for a while now. You know what I mean? My son's kind of, he's where he needs to be. Everything is copacetic. So, I'm still going to be flying out there. Not as often as I was before, but just go check on him and make sure that he good. But, the traveling to Florida every other week. Though I loved it. Very therapeutic. I'm not going to lie. I'm back home for a while. I'm going to be locked in. So, let's keep this content going. If y'all want me to break down more cases and stuff like that or whatever y'all want, I got y'all. But yeah, the Foreign Frequency, y'all know what to do. All right, hit that like button, that subscribe button, that hype button. Share this with your friends. Leave the comments. I appreciate everybody who's been checking in, being like, yo, where's the episodes? Thank you for being patient, but we back at it like crack addicts. You heard? It's your guy DJ Foreign, man. I'm up out of here. Y'all be good. Y'all be blessed. I'm gone.